So with that, let's go to John Dahl right now. John, are you on the phone?
I am.
Hey, John.
All right.
Great to have you here. I'm excited. I really admire your work a great deal.
Oh, well, thank you.
Now, you've got You Kill Me coming out on DVD today. And
Yes.
I absolutely love the film, and I'm not saying that to kiss your ass, because as the people who watch this show know, that they email me and they say, we always know when you're being polite, when you're really enthusiastic about a film. I thought this film was so incredibly unique story. The way you told the story was unique, and I was really disappointed in that the way they marketed it. From the standpoint, I was out and it was gone, and I think it's wonderful that it's now in DVD, and I think people are going to discover this movie, and it's going to become one of those movies like Rounders that people just love to see over and over again.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a unique film. I was thrilled to kind of actually get it made. These kind of films aren't easy to get made in Hollywood, and it's always hard to, market a movie, especially when it's a little quirky like this. But I think for some people that really get this movie, like you obviously do, I think it's a lot of fun to sit back and watch it.
Well, now, why is that difficult in Hollywood? Hollywood is a very linear, conventional place, and you're trying to do a unique piece of material that I imagine it's hard to say, well, it's like this type of film, or we can reach this type of audience. What were the difficulties that you ran into getting the film made in the first place?
I think first of all, it's like when you say it's a black comedy, that's like everybody runs. Yeah, so like one of the first previews that we had, it was very funny because we previewed it in upstate New York, and they always have someone there from the marketing person, well, how would you describe the movie, and somebody raised their hand and said, it's a black comedy. And then how many believe it's a black comedy? Like 70% of the audience says, yeah, it's a black comedy. And I think, that's just something that I think marketing people sort of shy away from because they don't really know how to sell it. And it's one of those films that you kind of have to discover yourself, and if it really works for you, you become a huge fan of that movie. You've probably got a list of your favorite, black comedies, and it's a hard thing to kind of, it's a hard thing to get the tone right, I guess. And so it works for some people and not for others, and I think that's why Hollywood kind of shies away from, the black comedy.
Well, what happened with it in the theater release, in your opinion, as far as why it didn't garner a big enough audience? Because it's not the quality of the picture, it's not the cast, which is terrific, the direction is terrific, it's written incredibly well. What sometimes movies are just hit or miss for, no explainable reason. Is that what you think just happened here?
Well, they decided to release this movie on June 22nd, on the same weekend as, I think, Evan Almighty, maybe.
Oh, wow.
You're swimming in, with a lot of really big fish at that point.
Right.
Because you've got all the summer blockbusters that are coming out, and there's a new blockbuster each weekend. And so, with a small movie like this, with very few advertising dollars, it's easy to kind of get lost. I mean, we were released in New York and L.A. the first weekend, and a couple of others, maybe Chicago, San Francisco, D.C., I believe. And, the film got nice reviews and did pretty well for a small film, and we kind of kept hoping for the next sort of level of release. But I think that they got a little reticent in terms of, how much can we really make on this versus how much can we, it's sort of a risk to savings ratio, and it's very expensive for small movies to advertise.
Well, now the guys are asking on the board, they were asking just before you came on to ask you about DVD releases, and are we headed towards this where the movies are going to come out and be released at the same moment with the DVD? It seems like that's where they're headed, and they've even done it on a few movies. What's your take on that? Is that good or bad? Or?
Well, I think, I personally have been kind of watching, the music industry, and I think it was a few months ago that Prince, gave away his CD in the London Times one weekend, and I think Radiohead just basically released their film, their new album over the internet. And I think I think, the market is kind of changing right now, and really no one really knows what to do, at this moment. I think if filmmakers could make films and distribute themselves without the big sort of apparatus,
right?
That's kind of exciting to think about, releasing a movie over the internet or DVD directly. I mean, when you've got to put a film on 3,000 screens,
right,
and sell it all over the country, it really has to be you have to cast a very broad net, and with a film like You Kill Me, which is sort of a more, it's not going to be the same audience that's going to go for, a PG-13 straight down the middle, kind of crowd pleaser. So on some level, a little bit of niche marketing is sort of a good thing. It's just how to present it to people. And I think the other thing that, that's really changed about it is that, home screening systems and sound and picture have become, really pretty spectacular. So,
yeah, absolutely.
There is a...
And it's going to get better, John. It's going to get better when everyone has the HD DVD players, and with the HD TV, the picture is going to even be more spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. I think DVD is probably one of the best things that has happened to the movie business, because, I've got a collection of hundreds of them. It's like I want to watch that scene from Casablanca or Spartacus, right, or To Live and Die in L.A. I can just grab it and throw it in my computer and watch a couple of scenes.
That's great. Well, I think the thing that everybody has to keep in mind is that no matter how successful a movie is at the box office, 99% of the audience that ever sees that film is going to be on DVD. I don't care if it's Gone with the Wind, because just as time goes on, that's where people are going to see the film. And even if you have a long run at the theater, when you look at the number of people that see it at the theater versus how many people are going to Netflix and getting your film. Yep. So, this movie, I believe, is going to secure a huge audience, because it's going to be one of those things on Netflix where everybody keeps saying, rates it high, check it out. Shows like this, people saying, hey, you got to check that out. But let's tell people what the movie is about. Can you give a plot summary and tell them what it's about? Yeah, because it's a fun story.
Yeah, it's basically Ben Kingsley plays the part of a Polish hitman from New York who is, has a drinking problem which prevents him from killing people. So his uncle, played by Philip Baker Hall, sends him to San Francisco to dry out and work with his, almost like a parole officer, if you will, Bill Pullman. And while in San Francisco, he meets up with Téa Leoni and Luke Wilson. And as things get worse in Buffalo, it's sort of like a struggle between, is Frank going to become sober enough to go back to killing people full time, or is he going to just get washed out in San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wild one, a hitman with a drinking problem. That's all you need to know. I mean, it's hysterical. And
I like your description much better.
Yeah, let me be your editor. He's a hitman with a drinking problem. Yeah. And he's trying to get help at AA meetings in a public place, and people don't know if he's serious, if he's full of shit, what the hell is going on. And Ben Kingsley. Everybody loves to talk about De Niro and Duvall, and they're wonderful. But Ben Kingsley is the most underrated actor there is, because De Niro, I'm sorry, is not playing Gandhi and then moving over to a sensitive character that's quiet and introspective, and then moving on over to being a hitman that's comedic. And, oh, by the way, completely believable. And I thought that was the best thing that you do directing, John, is that for me, 40-Year-Old Virgin is bullshit. I just can't get into it. I need a certain amount of reality. You were presenting something in a real scenario that could really happen with lines and situations that are believable, and that makes it funny.
Great. Well, you nailed it.
You're sold?
Yeah. No, I realize fairly. It's like, I think audiences go into a movie theater thinking what I'm seeing is real until you tell me that it's not real. And I think that grounding a film in a little bit of reality and then straying from that slightly, is basically sort of a way of getting the audience to kind of go along with you. But if it's grounded in reality, I mean, I always kind of hate those movies where, the policeman's driving a F1, Ford pickup truck that would cost more than his paycheck. You see that all the time, and there's a little bit of a sort of a almost denial of reality. But I mean, that's a different kind of film.
It's a different.
I like films that are grounded, I guess, in reality, and then you can take it from that point.
Absolutely. And now we've got a phone call. We want to take a call here.
Sure.
Who is it?
It's Angela. She has a question for John, or wants to tell John about how she liked your movie.
Angela, tell John where you're from and ask him whatever you'd like to ask him. Angela?
I hear her.
I'm actually from Massachusetts. How you doing, John?
Good. How are you?
I'm right here.
Angela, go ahead and talk to John.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can.
We can hear you.
I'm doing good. Oh, great. Okay, great. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on Now Live, and I love your show.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on, and it's great to have a chance to talk to you and get to know a little bit about your movies.
Great. What part of Massachusetts you from?
I'm actually about 20 minutes from Boston.
Oh, okay.
Let's not talk about.
My wife is actually from Boston.
I'm an Angel fan. That's all you guys need to know. I'm a little depressed right now.
Oh, your wife from Boston?
I met a woman recently that's getting married, and she's from Boston, and her wedding cake is going to be a cake that looks like Fenway Park.
Man.
That's so awesome.
A sports fan.
Yeah. That is a sports fan. And let me tell you something. She must be happy about the Red Sox right now, though, huh?
Absolutely.
Boy, I was liking both of you so much for a while.
So back to You Kill Me.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Do you have a question? Do you have a question for John and You Kill Me, Angela?
No, I just wanted to say I love his movie. I love the movie, and just to say hi to everybody and show some love.
All right. Thanks a lot,
But
Angela.
I'm going to walk in. My son's going to get a little loud.
Okay. Thanks.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks, Angela. All right. Well, hey, listen, you're getting love from Massachusetts, so that's okay.
There you go.
Now, John, what was it like? What was the process like working with Kingsley when you're directing him? Every actor works differently, and directors work differently. What's your process? Does he just show up and know what he wants to do, type of thing, or are you collaborating on each scene, or how do you work?
Well, it's interesting because one of the producers, Carol Baum, had said had approached Ben Kingsley with the possibility of doing this movie, and he read the script and really liked it and responded to it, and so and he was forming a new production company, and so they offered him a role as producer and lead actor. So,
oh wow, great!
So they sent me the script and said, so I read the script thinking, wow, is this going to be a good part for Ben Kingsley? But also, is it a movie that I'm going to know how to make? And I just thought the script was hilarious and interesting, and it had a lot of things in it for me. So I basically met with Ben Kingsley, and we said, gee, it seems like we both like the same screenplay. Do you want to change anything? And he said, no, I don't want to change a word. And I said, well, neither do I, other than to fix a few things so that we can shoot it a little easier. And that was pretty much it. I think we really saw the character the same way. And then while he's doing the movie, it's sort of like it's very interesting to watch his process. He picks out his wardrobe, and then he kind of comes in and does his thing. But he, it's like he looks to you to say, was that, did you like that? Is that working? Because I think if you're an actor, it's like it's hard to have a concept of how it's all piecing together. You're just doing the scene. You're just in the moment. So, I was thrilled to have, to be able to work with Ben Kingsley, but also to have him look to me and say, is this working as a movie? And, that's, I guess, what actors look to directors to do. Yeah.
Now, you also worked with Dennis Farina in this film, and I love Dennis Farina, man. There is just something about that guy that you want to go have a beer with him, and you believe him that he's going to do some damage to you. You just believe.
Yep.
And what was he like working with him?
He's, it's interesting because every actor is, brings something new and different to a film. I guess probably everybody knows this, but Dennis was a, police officer in Chicago for 20 years before he met Michael Mann and started an acting career. And the one thing about him is that it's like he's never really left those sort of humble beginnings of being a police officer in Chicago. And I think that's what makes him so genuine on film, and I think that's why people like him so much.
Right.
He's a very down-to-earth, easy-to-get-to-know guy. If somebody stops him in a hotel lobby, he'll shake their hand, sign an autograph. I mean, he's a very down-to-earth guy, and I think he brings that quality across in his work.
There's a sincerity and a reality to him in his acting, and it's good to hear that that's off screen too. Yeah. Now, I got to tell you, Téa Leoni, for me, I can never stand anything that she's in. I just don't buy her generally. I don't like her. And I loved her in this. I thought this is the best thing that she ever did. She was so good and so on the money. And I can only, I'm sure, sometimes it's just, maybe it was a mood I saw her in other things that I was in. I don't know. But you directed her in a manner that was got a performance out of her that I've never seen, John. So I'm not sure what you did or what you said or what your process was with her, but I thought it was fantastic.
Did you ever see a movie called Flirting with Disaster?
No.
The David O. Russell film. If you like Téa Leoni in this movie, you'll like her. You'll like Flirting with Disaster. It's a very funny movie. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's got to be 12 years ago or something like that now, but it was with Ben Stiller. And she plays this quirky, it's almost the same character, and I sort of fell in love with her in that role and wanted to see her in another, I kind of wanted to see her do that role again.
Right.
And, I hadn't seen her do it for a while. And when we approached her with this project, she's actually the only actress that we approached, and she, loved the script and didn't want to, again, like Ben Kingsley, she didn't want to change a word of the script. She really loved the character what was on paper. So I just think she's a real talent. I think that, the sort of that kind of dark black sense of humor. She's kind of sexy and funny and sarcastic and cynical. I think she's perfect at that.
Well, I think sometimes too, people forget. You see an actor and they got to make a living, and a lot of times it's what they're being offered. And if you're only being offered, X, Y, and Z, sometimes you take something that you're not appropriate for, and then somebody like me sees them in that, and I say, right. I don't like her. But in reality, you put her in a perfect casting position in a role that I thought she hit a home run and was terrific. Now, Bill Pullman is a very interesting guy, and I wasn't aware of it until this morning, actually, but you went to film school in Montana, and Bill Pullman was your professor? Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yep.
That's bizarre, man. That is so wild. So what is that? What was that like in school with him, number one? And how did you guys become so friendly that you wind up working together? And go ahead. I'll ask you. Next time I'll try and ask you 6 questions at once, John, because that's the easiest. So what was that like with him as a professor?
It was, he was. He had a master's degree in theater,
right?
And he was looking to for a teaching job, and he got offered one in Bozeman, Montana. And I had been an art student for a couple of years, and had worked as a commercial artist, and realized I didn't know what I wanted to do with art, so I decided to take film classes.
Right.
And so I started taking film, and I realized that the film department kind of lacked certain elements, so I looked outside the film department for the theater department and the English department, and I realized there was a directing class for the theater, and it just happened to be Bill Pullman. And, he was, only a couple of years older than I was at the time, and, he was young and energetic and full of, ideas, and, I don't know if you've been to, college professors can be a little bit boring after they've been there for a while.
A little boring?
And he was,
a little boring? They love the sound of their own voice, like nothing I've ever seen. For guys that usually never do anything, never actually do it, they have a lot of strong opinions on how you make it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to regret saying that. But
no.
Bill was like, Bill was just full of energy and really fun. And so we kind of got to know him, and I actually tried to get him to be in one of my student films, and he refused, which would have been hilarious to have that document now. But
absolutely.
You know, and Montana's a small place, and so, you know, as we all left school, he you know, it was like one of those things where he worked for 2 years and then they didn't renew his contract, so he went back to New York and started acting off Broadway, and ended up in one of those typical scenarios where a friend of his said, "Why don't you come along to me to this casting session for Ruthless People?" So he got the job in Ruthless People, and then when he was in L.A. doing promotion for the film, he called me and said, "Hey, you're not going to believe it, but I'm in Hollywood working on a movie." And so we just kind of reconnected, and it was really fun to see his career take off.
Wow! And
I was able to get him to he had a part in Last Seduction.
Right. Another great movie, kind of by the way. Very.
I've
read that. Another. You choose very interesting scripts. So, but anyway, he was in Last Seduction.
Yep. And then we just stayed in touch over the years, and you know, I had this part, and I actually had to kind of talk him into it. I said, you know, you'd be great telling Ben Kingsley what a loser he is, and you know, basically, you know, it's like one of those things where you just, to me, I could see Bill Pullman in that bar, you know, a little hammered, telling Ben Kingsley what a loser he is. And I just thought, you know, he's got the perfect balance of sort of sleazy malice and you know, kind of you know, just under, you know, sort of a criminal endeavor in a way. And you know, it's funny too, because he's nothing like that at all, but I think he just plays that particular character great.
But what's that like working with a guy? We all establish relationships. You know, whether it's your parents and they're the mentors, and you know you always see him that way, or an older brother, or you know, somebody who's your boss. In this case, guy who's your teacher, and now you're the boss on the set. How does that interaction play with you two? Do you ever look at yourself and feel uncomfortable talking to him about anything, or is it just well beyond that at this point?
It's well beyond that at this point, because you know he's such an established, you know, career movie,
right,
you know, star actor that, you know, it's like you know, he's been doing this for so many years that, you know, I guess we get kind of a kick out of the fact that we've known each other for so long, but you know, it's a very, you know, professional working, you know, environment, I guess.
Well,
no, it's a lot. It's really a lot of fun, and he's, you know, and what makes it so easy is just such a super nice guy.
Now, when you were a kid growing up in Montana, did you ever think? I mean, sometimes I look at my life and I go, man, I never saw this. I mean, when you sit as a kid in Montana, I don't know what the hell you do. What do you do as a kid in Montana? What do you do for fun?
You know, throw rocks.
When you're there, you're throwing your dirt clods. And you're visioning what your life is going to be. At any time, did you ever say, you know, I'm going to wind up in L.A. and I'm going to be making movies and I'm going to be working with movie stars? And I mean, did you ever foresee this?
I still can't believe I'm doing this for a living. So, you know, and I've been doing it for a long time. So, no, I had no idea. You know, growing up in Montana, you know, it's like if you liked doing art and music, you became a high school teacher, basically.
Right.
And you know, after taking a few, you know, classes, I realized that I didn't want to become a teacher, and you know, I knew that I wanted to do something in art and music, and basically just try to see if I could make a living as an artist, because you know, my father was in business, and you know, nobody really I knew had, you know, could, and the idea of making a living in the arts was completely foreign.
Do you ever struggle with that? I know my dad's a plumber, and you know, I grew up working with him at construction and everything, and sometimes it's a struggle to break away with your own identity and not feel guilt, or you know, when you're going towards an artistic endeavor, which is so polar opposite. Has that ever affected you as an artist?
Well, I think once my parents realized that I could actually make a living doing this, they said, okay, so you're not going to end up penniless on the street. That's good, but you know, and they've been very supportive. But you know, at the same time, every time I talk to them, they say, "Well, so do you have a job? What are you doing?" I mean, it's just such a foreign concept to them what I do, that you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and they still, do you have a job, or what are you doing? So
they're still worried you're going to wind up back home in your room.
Yes, exactly.
Mom, Dad, I'm okay. I'll be all right.
I'm moving in again. Yeah.
Now, Are you a poker player?
You know what? I always liked playing cards. I think the one thing that Rounders taught me is that I probably shouldn't play cards because the people that really do play cards, they are so serious about it, and they are so into it. To me, I'm like a $20 buy-in with some friends, and it's more about drinking beer and eating pizza than it is playing cards. But I think it was kind of a shock to me that real card players actually didn't drink alcohol while they played cards. That's how naive I was about poker. Well,
I made a living playing cards for about a year and a half, and for me, I just got tired of the element, and it's a job. If you're really going to play, it's like anything else. You study odds, and I don't drink and I don't talk, and I'm very serious about what I'm doing. And I started playing cards when I was 6 years old. My father is an unbelievable card player, actually, and plays big tournaments, and for a time was going to become a professional card player, but he had a family and didn't go over well with Mom, which leads me to Rounders, which is one of his favorite movies, and watches it all the time. So I think, when we're talking about You Kill Me, I see that same type of thing, because my father absolutely is addicted to Rounders. And a guy like me who's a card player, I love it, because I'm sitting there, even things I say, I'd never say that, or I wouldn't make that move, or dude, what are you doing? You love playing along with it, even when you know the outcome. I don't know what that's about, but I thought it was interesting that you did that. You did Tilt, and I thought maybe you had a gambling problem on the side.
No, I think actually working in the movie business is about as exciting of a gamble as I'm willing to take. But no, I think Rounders is a very sort of intoxicating movie in that you sort of fall into that world, and the guys that wrote the script, Brian and David, were very Brian was a big card player,
right?
And really thought, you could actually write a movie about this, and so I think a lot of it is, the script, Brian and David's script. I just think that they wrote such an interesting script. All I had to do is kind of not screw it up, but
easier said than done, because I think one of the things that I like about your directing is you don't get camera happy. For me, like, I have problems with Ron Howard. It's two guys having a conversation, and he's swooping in with a crane, and,
right.
And sometimes just doing less is more. And when you have a strong script and strong actors, that's really the essence of what you're getting at, is a story. And I think that I saw last night, John, I was over at Sony, and I saw a private screening of Francis Ford Coppola's new movie, Youth Without Youth. And when you see the movie, for me, my jaws just kind of dropped at the actual cinema, the filmmaking ability. This guy's ability, whether you like the story or not, just his ability to tell a story, the way he shoots it. And you're similar in that you know how to get to the nuts and bolts of the story. And I think that's the true art of filmmaking, is telling the story. And there are far too many guys working right now that show up and do a 3-shot, a 2-shot, a medium, close-up, all right, moving on, without any semblance of what is the essence of the scene that moves the story forward. And I find a real economy in the way that you shoot that helps the story along in a magical way.
Well, thank you. That's part of ironically, one of the conversations I had with on Rounders was, because the studio kind of compared it a little bit to the Tom Cruise pool movie, with
the pool movie.
It was The Hustler.
The Hustler.
Yeah, it was the Tom Cruise,
the remake of
Paul Newman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way the ball was, the way the camera was swooping around the pool table, and I think everybody that was looking at this movie said, it should really, the camera should like follow the cards around, and I felt completely the opposite. I said, you've got like a 10-page sequence where two guys are playing cards. If the audience doesn't care about the characters, they're not going to really care what the camera's doing.
Exactly.
And so, you have to become invested in the characters, in order for the movie to work. And actually another little bit of a battle was, the dialogue that the card players said, like Pasadena, I'm just some of the terms that are used in poker. Yeah. They wanted to kind of smooth those out so that the audience could follow it. And I said, that's the beauty of the script. It's like you're entering this other world, and if you change all of that, you're ruining the authenticity of the story. I mean, that's the way real card players talk. So what you want to do, I mean, it would be the same as if you were doing a movie in an ER, changing all the dialogue so that the audience could understand it. It wouldn't seem authentic. People don't know what stat means, but they hear it all the time in shows. I mean, in other words, you can't, when you do a story that has, real characters and real situations, you have to kind of bring the audience up to where they're coming from. And I think if you make it interesting, they'll go along with you. And so, getting the authenticity into like a movie like Rounders, I think, is one of the reasons why it's kind of lasted or has had so much staying power on DVD, because it feels authentic to real card players.
Yeah,
I think is what you're saying, that your dad watched it and you've watched it, and I can't tell you how many people I run into that say, yeah, I've bought that DVD 3 times.
Well, the only thing better than that is hearing that they bought it a 4th time. But
yeah. Well,
they
did do a special edition, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Did you do a special edition where you do your notes on it?
Yeah, because when the movie came out, I mean, I think it was like, it came out and it's sort of like everybody thought, okay, well, they quickly threw this movie together so that they could capitalize on Good Will Hunting. And I was kind of thinking, I remember going to the theater when we were shooting and watching Good Will Hunting and thinking, oh my God, we're making Good Will Hunting Part 2. Matt Damon's going to become such a huge movie star out of this. I mean, I think there was an expectation that it was going to be the same movie as Good Will Hunting, and all of a sudden it's this sort of dark, poker movie where the girl dumps him, and then, poor Gretchen Mol got like trashed in some of the early reviews because she dumped him. How could you dump that lovable Matt Damon? And
he's short.
He's a card. And it was like he was a card player. He's not a math genius, and I don't know. So I mean, the movie did okay, at the box office, but I think there was an expectation that it should have done better. So the original DVD was just sort of dumped onto the market. I don't even know if it had chapter search. So a couple years later, or maybe it's like 4 or 5 years later, they after they'd sold like so many copies of it, they decided to put out a special edition. So we got. Edward and Brian and David and I did a commentary, and then they put a bunch of other things on it. So it's actually not a bad special edition Rounders.
Well, I think it's an exciting time for filmmakers because you do get to see a movie like Rounders and then hear what the director was thinking, what motivated, problems they had, how they solved them, which you weren't privy to years ago when you were starting out. And I watched the other night. I watched Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And I'm listening. I watched the whole movie again. I've seen it many times, but I watch it, and then I watch it a second time with Mike Nichols giving his notes throughout every single scene. And you look at, even if you come away and you learn one thing that you can use in the future, you learn one thing that you can use in the future. And I think it's very, very relevant. So. At any rate, listen, I don't want to keep you, and definitely I appreciate you coming on so much, and I know that You Kill Me is going to do great in DVD, and I recommend it highly to everyone, and I wish you nothing but success.
Well, thank you very much. It was great fun talking to you.
Hey,
glad you enjoyed the show.
Thanks a lot, John. Oh, hey, right, John, before I let you go, I just forgot.
Uh-huh.
Can you give us a station identification? This is... You say whatever you want. That this is John Dahl, and you're listening to Hollywood Babble-On, and if you want to say something about You Kill Me or Rounders, that's cool, too.
This is John Dahl, and you're listening to Hollywood Babble-On. Check out You Kill Me if you can. Thanks.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Put you,
okay.
You and David Lynch are right next to each other now.
Right, one of my favorite directors.
Oh, well, he was on. He stayed on. I couldn't get the guy off. He stayed on for an hour.
Oh, really?
Like, all right, we've run out of time.
Now he's another Montana guy. I actually grew up in Missoula.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
There's a very small little cadre of us, but yeah, no, and unfortunately I've never met him. I would love to one of these days.
Oh, he's a great guy, I mean, and he's very, very interesting. He's got a great book that is very interesting read, quick read, very small book, but it's very, very interesting. So, at any rate,
he's a fascinating guy.
He really
thank you again.
Thanks a lot, John. I appreciate you being here.
You take care. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.